do that. Hello, I am Marion. This is Book Zealots. My bingo from last year. Thank you, everybody. Everybody who gave me prompts. I had a great reading year. Not every book I read I loved. There were some that I absolutely did not like. So for instance, where is this book? Where is this book? Somebody had given me a recommendation, a prompt for, where in the world is it? I don't even see it. Let me just go to the back and look it up. Oh, this is just taking too long. Where's it at? All right, I'll just go across and see if I can remember. So as much as I thank you all for giving me these challenges, even though I didn't like some of the books, I still enjoyed the opportunity, the challenge to do it. Fantastic year. Now, I checked out far too many books from the library because I didn't get the opportunity to unhaul a lot of my books, but it was still amazing. There are 2 books that I did not read, so I failed. I didn't get a blackout, but I did pretty well. I would love to take a picture of it and post it, but tech does not like us. Okay, it doesn't like me. But anyway, so I'm going to start in the left-hand corner. I might be able to leave a link. I don't know. I took the link off. I might be able to put a new link. So one of my prompts, Cold. I read Adrift. Fantastic book. I loved that book. So it was about this, twofold. It was about a young man who was actually from a Nantucket family who was used to whaling and being on ships. That was their livelihoods, what they did. But it was also about the captain who did not bring his wife for some reason. And anyway, it's a very cold, seasonal book if you like that sort of thing. But it is a survival book, so if you don't like survival books, then totally skip it. Title is in the cursive, or wait. Title is in cursive. Okay, so on the front cover, the title is in cursive. Is that rare these days? I read Tenant of Wildfell Hall. That was the very first book that I read for 2025. Then flowers on the cover, or as a title, a flower like tulips or whatever, or a character name. I did the flowers on the cover, and that was Lost Flowers of Alice Hart. I didn't particularly care about that. And then, I'm not even going to get into that. But the flowers were pretty. There were parts of the storyline I didn't like. Black and white cover, or words in title. I read The Idiot. That was a buddy read. Wait, was that the buddy read? That might have been. Anyway, I remember reading this book, so this was an accidental reread. I read it in high school. There were parts of it that I read. I did not like that woman. I also didn't like the people that, and I forget the main character's name now, I'll put it here. He got dumber, or dumb. He got dumbed down for hanging out with these crazy people. I know they called him the idiot because he had epilepsy. He wasn't an idiot, and he was very observant when it came to people's body language. He was the smart one, and unfortunately, things didn't go well. Anyway, I'm very happy I read that book. I think I did unhaul it. About a dog or animals, and I read, I think this was Prometheus's book, The Dog Who Could Fly. That was a really good book. There was a part in that book where I stopped and I thought, wait a minute, Why is the dog being humanized? How does he know what the dog is thinking? That's how good it was written, but it did make me pause. Wait a minute. What you talking about, Willis? The dog, you don't know. If you've never read that book, I highly recommend it. Oh, and while I'm at this, I will try and put the pictures for each book up in the corner so that you can see the visual, because I'm a visual person, and if you're anything like me, you want that picture. Let me know if you want that picture in the comments section. Okay, so then the next row, a cover you think is cool or beautiful. And I put The Refuge, and the reason why is because I've been to the Shaker Village during the time period in the fall, and it is pretty. I think I've been there every season, and it's just always pretty. It just is. Unless it's like now where it's winter time and there's no snow and it's just not at its best. I'm not going to say it's ugly. It's not ugly. It's just not at its best. Then gender titles or words, and I read America's First Ladies. Then Penguin Publication, I read A Journal of the Plague Year, or A Journal of the Plague Year by Defoe. That was so good. I loved that book. New York Times #1 bestseller, which I thought I would have a really hard time with. This was for March for 2025, and I read the book in May. I read Battle Mountain. I would have liked that book so much more had it not had cussing in it. Then for disaster or tragedy in the U.S., I read Isaac's Storm. I was not familiar with that hurricane in the Gulf of Texas, like reading where it hit in, is it Galveston, or I think it's Galveston, Texas. And one of the houses that survived that was for sale in 2025. I don't know if it still is, but if I can find the link and it still is available, I'll put it, because it was really cool walking through the pictures and seeing it. An alliteration title, and I read Fat to Firm. Then genre, not usually read, I read Gunmetal Mountain, and that was a book recommended by, I'm trying to think of his name. He doesn't post anymore. And he had his dog, Bella. What was his name? Something about the library. Then the next prompt is First Lady, and I read, I had a buddy read, but this was a good book, My Dearest Friend, and I buddy read with Talia, and Talia she's smart. She is smart, so she will challenge you. I read, sci-fi. I thought sci-fi, the prompt sci-fi. I think Nigel gave me this prompt, and I thought, why do you hate me? Why? I don't read sci-fi. Why are you giving me this prompt? And I thought, for the challenge, obviously. So I read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I borrowed Prometheus's book, and I was really surprised. Number one, I liked it. Number two, the main character was not that likable. I did not really care for him at all. And for some reason in my head, I thought the book would be different. Color in title, I read Beaten Black and Blue by a retired police officer. Then, let's see. Unread event or person in history. So something that I wasn't familiar with was the Panama Canal. So I included that by David McCullough. There were parts of it that I liked, the science and things like that. I even enjoyed reading about one of the main engineers, but the rest of it, I just did not care for it. Stars and Stripes on the cover, I read Black Hearts. It's about some of our soldiers that decided to throw standards out the window. That was a hard read. One of the prompts that I failed at, I started to read, it's over there. I started to read this book, I just didn't get it finished, And that was a book or a story published in 1600s. I'm reading William Bradford's book. It is good, but it's slow going, and I didn't do my time management well. No excuses. It is what it is. A book with mathematics. I didn't get the book that I wanted to read. It's in my finish what I started pile. I ended up reading Algebra and Geometry, a little book for children. That was cute. Then for intimidating read, I included The Courage to be Disliked. That one was really interesting. The philosophy of this one particular person that kept being mentioned, I just thought, why am I reading this book when I can just go read the other person? But it was interesting how the authors included this man who was more knowledgeable and this kid who was questioning the older man. It was an interesting book. Then I read, and this is not in order, I'm just going in order left to right. Set in Canada, a person or an author. And I read Roses for Mama because I had found out in 2025 that Jeanette Oke is Canadian, was Canadian. Is she still alive? I hope she is. If she isn't, okay, so I loved that book. There was a part in that book where I was thinking, oh, please don't. What are you doing? But then, whew. So yes, it was so well written, I was getting frustrated with her. Wartime, Soldier's Heart. That was a great book. That was written by, what is his name? Gary Paulson. Then Female Pirate. This was a really challenging one. I ended up listening to an audiobook. I listened to a total of 3 audiobooks in 2025. So this is Grace O'Malley, and you have to say it like that. You just have to say Grace O'Malley like you're Irish. Grace O'Malley. If I knew Gaelic like she did, apparently she was one smart cookie. Then I read a book about books, and that was Hope Between the Pages. I would have liked it better had the author included the flood. She conveniently left that out. The notable spelling mistake in the title, I read Toxic. And for mode of transportation on the cover, I read The Pioneer Woman. There's a horse on the cover. That one was just really soft chick lit. If you like The Pioneer Woman, then you might be interested in her story, how she met her cowboy, her husband, but all they did was kiss. It was, Anyway, Latin in the title, I read Infinite Impact. Then for author who uses initials for first and middle names, I read H.W. Brand's book, The General versus the President, and I read that during the time period I read Truman by David McCullough, because why not? Because I wanted to see what the relationship was. As if Truman wasn't long enough. But I did thoroughly enjoy reading them together. So there was a part in Truman where I paused, then read The General versus the President, and then went back, and yeah. Set in Mexico, The Greatest Gambling Story, and I loved the story about the horse. I could have done without the 2 people who did the gambling. Then one story title, I read Lafayette by Harlow Giles Unger, I believe. And for a cult, I read the Sherry Frank book. I forget the name of the title. I'll put it up here. And I found out about her book from Candlewick Library, Cheryl at Candlewick Library. Number in the title, I read 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do. I didn't know if I would like this book. I think I kept it. There were parts in that book that I really appreciated. And it wasn't like your self-help book. I mean, it is a self-help book, but I don't know. I got more out of it than I thought I was going to. An object on the cover that can be used as a weapon. And for middle grade March, I read Traitor, and it was about Benedict Arnold. So there were a lot of things on the cover that can be used as a weapon, including that man. Famous Shipwreck, Trapped at Pearl Harbor. Yeah, baby. Okay, so I ended the year with that book, and it was the perfect ending. It was the perfect book for the last book. I finished it on the 31st, and it was about death, obviously, but it was also about humanity and mankind and treating each other, your fellow man, your shipmate, well, and life didn't end for the ones that survived, and they had to keep going. And so obviously we're in another year and we have to keep going. That was a great book. There are cuss words in it. You've got to imagine they're sailors, they're fighting for their lives. Yes. Biography, A Person You Disagree With. Okay. Yes. Ilhan Omar. She does not like America. Why is she here? I was validated by reading her book in her words, and she is a violent, vicious person. Read it for yourself. Title is A Complete Sentence. I read How to Stitch an American Dream. That was another one of my audios. That was my second audiobook. And it is about Jenny Doan, who is one of the creators, starters of Missouri Star Quilt Company. I used to buy fabrics from them all the time. I don't anymore, but I think she's kind of stepped down. I think she's missionarying, is that a word? She is on a missionary project tour in Africa. I'm not sure. Anyway, whoever's running it now, the prices have gone up, obviously. The taste isn't to my liking. The fabrics that they offer aren't to my liking, so I don't buy from them anymore. So then the next one, Amazon chart #1 bestseller for September. So I had to wait until September, and I read To Let Them Theory, or the Let Them Theory. And this girl just thought she was revolutionary, but it just reminded me of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Then picture on the cover that runs off the edge. I read The Snow Child. That is not my style. I am not into the whole magic realism fantasy stuff. Not my thing. And not my thing. Okay, midwifery or midwifery. In May, I read Called the Midwife, and it was book #2, and I was disappointed with the way that it was ended. Then for short stories, oddly enough, this one was more challenging than I thought it was going to be. Now, I read a short story, a classic short story. I don't know who it was. So I have that highlighted, but I also have Washington Irving. So maybe I read 3. Oh, The Manchester Marriage. So I read The Manchester Marriage and Washington Irving. And that was interesting. So I don't know if that was... I read 3 short stories. It counts. It counts. Then for Night Scene on the cover, I read Thunder of Heaven. For originally published in Japan, I read Mina's Matchbox. There was only one thing in that. Okay, so 2. One of the girls was too focused on her cousin's development, and that's all I'm going to say about that. There was another thing that happened that was not appropriate. Nothing is really revealed until the end, but I can't tell you what it is without spoiling it. Then set in ancestors' land, I decided to go with Kentucky. The feud about the Hatfields and the McCoys, and of course it was right on the border of West Virginia and Kentucky. And yeah. Anyway, if you think the Hatfields were the ones that were not the aggressors, you'd be wrong. They're always romanticized, and the McCoys are always made to be the bad ones. Anyway, so Mirror in Title, I read a children's book for middle grade March. I read Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, Diary of Bess Brennan. It wasn't well done, in my opinion. Pun in the title. I had such a hard time finding a clean pun in the title book. So much trouble. Somebody said, hey, why don't you read a children's book? Thank you very much. I did, and it was hilarious. So the book that I chose was 789, about numbers, and it was so cute. It was clever. It was very well done. And if you are teaching your children, I would say even middle grade would probably appreciate the pun. The cleverness of the words, but definitely if they are in elementary school, or even if you have a smart preschooler, yes, it is good. Then have someone choose a book for you, and I don't remember who chose this. Prairie Fires. If you chose Prairie Fires for me, let me know. Leave a comment. So anyways, I read that. I liked the information about Laura Ingalls, but her daughter was so disrespectful. Then Set in Africa. Oh, and Almanzo might have been a little too soft, in my ever humble opinion. Then, so Set in Africa, I read 5 Weeks in a Balloon. Oh my goodness, this book. I loved this book. This story is so much better, in my opinion, than 80 Days Around the World. This book, so if you like 80 Days Around the World, you must read 5 Weeks in a Balloon. Because, okay, and the beginning might bore you because it's all about all of the materials that, and the things that they have to bring in the balloon. Once you get in the balloon, the characterization, the characters just come to life. There's this one part where this character, I was so sad, so worried. Then at the end, he does something, and I'm just like, I'm gonna smack you. That's a great book. If I had it, I would have saved it, but it was Prometheus's book, so you know he saved it. It's one of those really big, fat Barnes & Noble collector's books, so he has it. I think it's in his room. Then read Pearl S. Buck, and the person recommended Imperial Woman. The lady recommended Imperial Woman. I read, and no, wait, this is number 4. I could not get my hands on this one. This was, so I had 4 audiobooks because I remember listening to this one. My library didn't have it, but it was on audio. So I'm listening to this while I'm quilting. And it's really familiar to me. And I'm thinking, I know this book. And there's this one part that really frustrates me. And I'm like, marry him, please marry him. Imperial Woman. You know she doesn't marry him. So yes, it was an accidental reread, but I have read it. I listened to the audio this for 2025. It was great, so thank you. I don't know if it was Nancy or somebody else had recommended this. Let me know. Then time-related words in the title, A Year of Living Biblically. This man, so his name is AJ, and I've read another one of his books, and it was about something about knowing everything, where he studies or reads through the encyclopedia. Now, he's Jewish by blood, but basically an atheist, which is pretty common, I think. And he just got really bad advice from the rabbi and from the Christian. Anyway, a book published in 1925, Giants in the Earth, and I thought I was going to hate that book, but I'm not finished. I set it in my pile over here for finish what I started. I am liking it more than I thought I would. They have reached their land. The husband has gone filed, I forget what it's called, filed for the something, drawing a blank. Anyway, the wife doesn't like it, but she sees how happy her husband is, so she's not saying anything. You know, people are going to show up too. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Okay. Then the very last book prompt on the bingo was translated work, and I read The Memory Police. I don't know if this was the same author that did the other book. Where is it? So I read The Memory Police, and I might have seen that on Tanya's video, and my library had it, and I said, yes, that fits the prompt. I'm going to go check it out. So that was my bingo. Wait. For 2025. Thank you, everyone. So I didn't get a blackout. And I'm not sad. I'm not sad about it because it was an amazing year. So thank you, everybody. Leave your comments down in the description. Leave your comments down in the comments section. Let's chat it up. And I hope you guys have a great year. Bye.